Chronic spontaneous urticaria, or chronic hives with no known cause. It's so unpredictable. It's like playing pinball. Itchy, red bumps start on my arm, then my back. Sometimes my legs. Hives come out of nowhere. And it comes and goes. But I just found out about a treatment option at treatmyhives.com. Take that, chronic hives. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Kelly Green Hour as we are getting you set for Week 17 in the National Football League. Well, there's already been 3 games, but you get the gist as the Philadelphia Eagles make their last regular season road trip of the season up north to Orchard Park, New York, to face the Buffalo Bills in what could potentially be a Super Bowl preview. Maybe. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's going on, man? How was your Christmas?
Christmas was good. Christmas was chaos. That's what you get when you have a one-year-old and a 5-year-old. But it's so much fun. Always tons of fun, tons of gifts, tons of family, tons of good food. So I can definitely not complain. What about yourself?
All right. I mean, I watched football pretty much all day. Every gift that I got pertained to the Eagles, which was pretty funny. Literally every gift. I got the Nick Foles book. I got a Mitchell & Ness Eagles jacket. I got an Eagles cookie jar holder. Or could be like hold the dog's treats in it, you know? I got Eagles tees for golfing. Like everything. Like literally. I got a fan cave sign that I can hang up, which I got to hang up in my room somewhere. So like everything I got was Philadelphia Eagles related, which is pretty funny.
People know you. Your family and friends know you, so.
I am predictable when it comes to that. All right, so before we jump into this game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LGHarrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on this game, your predictions, players to watch. Would you play, I know that this has been a topic of conversation. And we know what the weather is like up in Buffalo. And the Eagles, I think they have at least the number 3 seed wrapped up. I don't foresee the Panthers passing them. Would you play the starters? I know I would start the starters. Would you play them the entire game? Lane Johnson is missing his, 7th straight game. I'm still shocked that they didn't place him on IR when they had the chance to kind of just taking up a roster spot. Could have had another special teams guy up or offensive lineman up, somebody that could help. Lane Johnson won't be playing this week. Nakobe Dean won't be playing this week. I'm pretty fine with those two, especially with what the weather's going to be like in Buffalo, a hamstring, a foot injury. I mean, you don't want them to get worse. We need them both for the playoffs. Jalen Carter's back, so that should be a big boost to the defense, and hopefully the defense just takes it an extra step with the way that they have been playing over, the last couple of weeks. Keep Brandon Graham inside at D tackle because he's just been doing really well in his limited snaps playing defensive tackle. Jordan Davis just needs to continue doing what he's doing. He's been an absolute beast. One of the biggest snubs of not making the Pro Bowl this year has been Jordan Davis, by far. Just by my quick observations heading into this game. Josh Allen is still Josh Allen. He still plays, he still plays at an MVP caliber. James Cook, the leading rusher in the NFL, really, really good. Their leading receivers, Khalil Shakir. They're really good tight ends, Dawson Kincaid, Dawson Knox. And their offensive line is good, led by Dawkins, who went to Temple. So, it's going to be a tough test for this Eagles defense. What are your initial thoughts on this battle between the Eagles and Bills, Connor?
I mean, my initial thoughts are that this is going to be a game that's going to be won most likely on the ground, whoever can dominate time of possession and win. I mean, you got two, Saquon Barkley seems to be finding himself over the past couple weeks, and we've been able to use that to our advantage and to help us in large part over these past couple weeks of games. Obviously, of course, it's against the Raiders and the Commanders. I get it, but any type of, heading in the right direction for Saquon Barkley was 100% needed. It was vital that Saquon Barkley start to figure it out no matter who it was against, heading towards the playoffs and helping to control time of possession, because this defense was just getting just getting beaten all over because of the whole time of possession battle in the games that we had lost, or in, the Cowboys game that we blew. The time of possession was lost, the quick 3 and outs, and then the defense ended up getting exhausted. So, and then you got on the flip side of it, you got the Buffalo Bills, who are one of the best, if not the best, rushing offense in the league, behind Josh Allen and James Cook, just like you alluded to. So it's going to be important for the Eagles defense to really step up. We've seen a mixed bag when it comes to stopping the run, and I think one of the biggest points that's going to come of all this is how much of Nakobe Dean being out is going to affect the run defense. Like you said, okay, you got Jalen Carter back and Nakobe Dean's out now, but how much more important is Nakobe Dean to stopping the run versus, Jalen Carter, and what might happen up front with that? Because it feels like once it gets into the second level and making those tackles and making those plays, where our Russian defense has kind of given some of the bigger plays up and made the bigger mistakes and errors. So I really think that this game's going to be won by whoever can control the time of possession and really establish and keep the run game going throughout the game and not sacrifice it if forced to go to the air. Totally confident with the Philadelphia Eagles over the Buffalo Bills, just based on the weapons. Like you said, Khalil Shakir is the leading receiver for the team, but Khalil Shakir is the leading receiver at 625 yards through the air. So I do think that, you can put your faith in them and marbles in Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. They've also seemed to have started to figure some things out and get a bit of a groove going, even despite the inferior opponents that we've had leading up to this. And then, like you said, the decision on some of these players, we kind of talked about it on our Tuesday episode. Jalen Carter's the type that if you let him have the extra time off, he's going to come out really sluggish. He's going to come out in the first playoff game and probably severely underperform the expectation that we have. And to be honest, he hasn't really performed to the expectation most of us have of him this year anyways. Obviously, he got booted before playing a snap week 1. He's been on the injury report for a large portion of the season with some sort of injury, mostly stemming from the shoulder issue that he finally ended up going and getting a procedure for. So I think it's important that Jalen Carter gets out there and plays some football. The Liz Frank injury, I think, is worse than Lane Johnson and the Eagles want to lead on. And I think that that's what makes it all the more important. I agree with you. It's starting to really I get it. You're trying to play the medium, play to an advantage of teams knowing if he's not on the IR, he could play because he's one tough SOB. And that advantage that gives the Philadelphia Eagles offense. So maybe it was trying to play that type of game with the media and the opponents with Lane Johnson. But I do also believe that Liz Franks are not something to mess with. And generally, Liz Franks are not, even at its lower form, are still very dangerous to play with because they can turn bad very quickly. And then Nakobe Dean, of course, kind of foreshadowed, what's his effect going to be, because we saw as the game wore on without him against the Washington Commanders, you kind of felt his lack of presence when he came out of that game.
You did, and that's going to be key. This week against Buffalo, the number 1 rushing offense in the league, because Jahad Campbell's going to be in at linebacker, and the rushing defense isn't as good with him out there compared to Nakobe Dean. So I if there's one key that Vic Fangio has to zero in on when it comes to the Bills, is stopping James Cook and trying to slow down and contain Josh Allen, because Allen's going to move around the pocket. He's going to run. He's going to put his body in harm's way. I mean, if you remember the game 2 years ago in Philly, which the Eagles won in overtime, Allen had a great game. He had a really good game. Jalen obviously did too, winning the game, having 5 touchdowns. I think they both had 5 touchdowns. There was one play in which Jordan Davis actually chased down Josh Allen and kept him from getting a first down. That was a big key play in that game. So the Eagles just have to, continue to play the way they're playing. And again, this is definitely a better offense than the Raiders, better offense than the Commanders. So it's going to be a different test. But everybody's talking about, I want to see the Eagles beat a good team. I don't know if the Bills are as good as what people thought they were going to be coming into the year. And I'm not trying to slight them, because they're still good, but they're not going to win their division. It's going to be the Patriots. And their defense isn't that good. The Eagles, in theory, should be able to run on them. I mean, I get going up to Orchard Park, at that stadium. It's going to be a tough place to play, especially with the weather. If there's any fan base that rivals the Eagles fan base, it's theirs. Bills Mafia and the Eagles fan base. I want a Super Bowl between the Eagles and Bills just to see if wherever the Super Bowl's hold, if it can last, with both fan bases. Just imagine like in New Orleans on Bourbon Street or something, if it was the Eagles and Bills, and how that would end up between the two fan bases. But when you think about it, I don't know, is Sean McDermott a good coach? Sean McDermott has done some boneheaded things. Also, he is a hypocrite too. Talks about all this health and safety stuff with the tush push, and he runs the tush push more than the Eagles run the tush push. Like, if we're being honest, I know McDermott is, used to coach in Philly. I don't know if he's that great of a head coach. He's a good coach, but like maybe, just like Andy Reid's time wore thin in Philly, maybe his time is starting to wear thin in Buffalo, and they need a new voice there to get them over the top. Just like in, Tampa Bay. Why can't I think of the name of the guy? Tony Dungy was the coach, and, they needed to get rid of him, got John Gruden, and they won the Super Bowl the next year. That might be something that Buffalo needs. And maybe, I don't know if they're going to consider it. They're loyal, the ownership's a loyal group. They want to keep him. He's obviously done a great job getting them back to the playoffs consistently. But I still, obviously they're our toughest matchup in the last, quarter of the season. But, just looking at the other teams, it's not that hard.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this probably, I guess I wouldn't want to slight the Chicago Bears, who've been a bit inconsistent, but I mean, they're probably, when you look at the Lions, they haven't been that good. The Cowboys obviously are up and down. It's when you look at some of our past games and some of the past opponents, like we ended up going pound for pound with some of these offenses who are talked about so highly across the media. But I will admit, we definitely have not faced a quarterback to the same degree of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is definitely one of the best, if not the best, and I'll never argue that case. I'm not going to sit here and be like, no, Jalen Hurts is better than Josh Allen. There could be some crazy people. No. There could be some crazy people out there who do think that, but I think Josh Allen's great, and I agree with you. I don't think I've ever been at a point in a season where I have seen so many teams where I think a change of scenery at head coach is probably needed. But how do you move on from Harbaugh in Baltimore, Tomlin in Pittsburgh, McDermott in Buffalo? Like this, it's wide open this year for obviously the Ravens season's done for the most part. But when you look at the Steelers and when you look at the Bills and you see this wide open opportunity in the AFC, you have to think that if they can't take advantage of this wide open opportunity, perhaps like you said, maybe it's time for a change of scenery. And it's no slight at the coach. The coach, McDermott or Tomlin, will 100% get head coaching jobs immediately somewhere else. It's not a slight at them. It's just at what point of not getting over the hump is enough for ownership to say, I think it's time to move on. And obviously we know there's no more loyal ownership in this league than the Pittsburgh Steelers ownership. So obviously, but I've never come to a point in a season where so many really great head coaches left really wondering, are they no longer the answer? And you hit on it with the Buffalo Bills, who have, outside of Patrick Mahomes, probably they would be the 1-2 quarterbacks of the last, 3 years that you aspire to find a quarterback who can be like one of them. And
Lamar
Sean
Jackson
McDermott Lamar Jackson would be on there. This year seems to be an outlier in the fact that he's hurt almost every part of his body, which is crazy. But for this, the Bills, Josh Allen he's so good. He's so good through the air with the lack of weaponry that he has. Because, you hit on it, they have Dawson Knox, they have Dalton Kincaid, they have a good duo of tight ends. They don't really have a star wide receiver one. They haven't really had a star wide receiver one with Josh Allen around.
Probably since Amari Cooper or Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and then even Amari Cooper came in and had a year in Buffalo, and then things just didn't seem to pan out. And yeah, it's an odd trajectory that the Buffalo Bills have taken, and it feels like it's wide open for them to take. But I agree with you. Are they as good as what their record would indicate? It's not a slight at them. It's just, there are a lot of glaring weaknesses that management and ownership just haven't taken the time to truly address. And one of those big things is weaponry for Josh Josh Allen. Although James Cook, I didn't have him pegged for being the rushing leader at this point in the season, but he was more talented than a lot of people were giving him. But yeah, I do think the Philadelphia Eagles, especially when you look at their offense versus the Buffalo Bills defense, the Buffalo Bills defense secondary statistically looks good, but it's mostly for the fact that their Russian defense is one of the worst in the NFL. So teams are just rushing on them at really high levels because they know they can take advantage of that. They actually get rushed on their lead 17th most, but they rank 29th in yards and 32nd in rushing touchdowns allowed. So they really struggle against the run, and this is why it feels like a huge game for Saquon Barkley to take advantage of.
Yeah, you would think
and
that
Jalen Hurts, getting Jalen Hurts going out of the pod. But again, then it comes back to how much risk do you want to put Jalen Hurts into in this situation, in this game?
And in the weather that's going to be there. It's supposed to be rainy, maybe sleet, and it's sleeting in Philly right now. It's pretty icy out there. So I think the Eagles are going to leave tomorrow to go to Buffalo. So they should be fine. It should be after the storm passes through. But yeah, so like you would think that the Eagles are going to want to just kind of run the ball, just like against the Raiders. That game was 2.5 hours long. Like if they're able to get that, but when you have these two potential powerhouse teams going at each other, you expect this is like one of the standalone. Let me check the schedule real quick. I'm pretty sure this is the standalone 425 game. It's on Fox. There's nothing else that's going to be on at that time. There's only 2 games on in the 4:00 hour. The Raiders and the Giants start at 4:05. Eagles and Bills are 4:25. I can guarantee you that 1,000% of the TVs are going to be on Fox when it's the Eagles and the Bills. So like, I'm still my priority is health. I'm prioritizing health over everything. Like I'm going to start the starters. Everybody but Lane Johnson, obviously. And depending on how the game goes, like if we get to halftime and everything's going cool, it's a battle. Okay, cool. Keep them out there. But if it's not looking so good, like I'm not risking health. You need Jalen Hurts in the playoffs. You need Saquon in the playoffs. You need AJ in the playoffs. Nobody's going to play week 18. That's a given. Like none of the starters are going to play. It's going to be Tanner McKee game week 18. Like I get, wanting to quote unquote test yourself against a good team. But if it's not going to mean anything, which is tough to tell just because the Chicago Bears play the Sunday night game.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's going to happen. And I think the Eagles are going to finish with the 3 seed. And that's perfectly fine. Anything can happen with the 1 and 2 seeds. It's just a matter of the Eagles can't dictate who they're going to play in the first round. I do think, say, the team like the Rams have 2 easy games, and if they win those 2, they'll finish with the 5 seed. So they'll go to the NFC South champion to play. But I know, the Rams all off season, we're talking about the Eagles. They came to Philly and lost. The Eagles have their numbers. You know that the Rams want another shot at the Eagles, and if they can get it in the first round, in Philly to try to, win that game, and then they can start popping off or whatever, that's what could happen. But that's a different story for a different day. I'm always going to prioritize health this late in the season. You already have the division wrapped up. Pretty much have the number 3 seed wrapped up. People are talking about, you want to go into the playoffs looking good. Well, if you remember, and I know it was an injury thing, but in 2017, the Eagles looked bad against the Raiders. That last game against the Cowboys, everybody was talking about they wanted Nate Sudfeld to start in the playoffs. And Eagles, the first game against Atlanta was a little bit of a struggle as they were the first number 1 seed in the divisional round to be underdog to a 6 seed. I think that's what Atlanta was or something. But still, the Eagles got the win and they kind of took off from there. So I don't have any issue. I think the Eagles would be perfectly fine going. If the Eagles sat these last 2 weeks, I don't think there would be any issues going into the playoffs. Now they won't sit there. These guys, they're going to play this week. But I'm still going to be wary of if somebody gets banged up, I'm going to have that leash short, pulling everybody, put the backups in, and let's just get ready for the first playoff game in Philly.
The number 2 seed is not very, clear, and it sucks that Bears game is happening after the Eagles game, because if it was happening before and you kind of got an idea, if the Bears end up winning, then you can kind of be like, okay, let's, the 2 seeds pretty much out of reach. Let's prioritize our health. Let's worry about keeping guys healthy going into the playoffs. We've seen, we brought it up in the past that A.J. Brown, when he got hurt and he didn't get to play in the Buccaneers game, and the Buccaneers ran us over in that wild card playoff game. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're out any key player. And I think, that obviously became the focus in Nakobe Dean. Hamstring injuries are not something to mess with. With Lane Johnson, although, it seems like there was other priorities with Lane Johnson long before, coming to this point in the season. I am of the belief, if this really meant something, if we were still competing for the division, Lane Johnson would be out there this week. But because it's just a matter of second or third seed, and it feels like there's this feeling like hopefully Sirianni and his coaching staff are feeling the same way, where it's like, if things start to go awry in any way, shape, or form, or, our offense is continuing to look kind of stagnant, we go back to the way that we were 3-4 weeks ago, that you can be like, okay, maybe we pull the plug and we not continue to put anybody at risk in this game. And prioritizing health versus, getting right against a superior opponent than what we faced over the last 2 weeks, it just doesn't make sense to me to force that. And if there was a clearer path to the number 2 seed, I'd be all for, okay, let's go get that 2 seed. Let's try and get it. If the Bears played at 2:00, they lost, and it's starting to become more clearer. Like, okay, we really do have a shot. You play them through and see what happens, and try and get that number 2 seed and that better seed. And we would love for it to run through the link, but obviously we have more or less lost the ability to dictate that. There are games that happened earlier in the season where the result goes a different direction. We are in control of our own destiny for getting the 2 seed right now, but we are not, in fact, in that situation. And you do have to prioritize health. If we lose Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts, it would be absolutely massive. Like, those are the types of players you lose that you don't come back from. And so I agree with you, LJ. I think that prioritizing health in this situation should be the focus. I just don't know where Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff's mind is at. And with that in mind, I ask you, where do you think their mind is at? Because Sirianni's an uber competitive guy. Like, do you think he's going to push his guys out there and say, as long as we can see the 2 seed in front of us, we're going to go for it? Or do you think he's going to prioritize health based on knowing some things that have happened even with this team, with him in the past?
The plan obviously going in is going to be to play everybody, because he is a competitive guy, and this game still sort of kind of means something. I'm of the belief it really doesn't, but he still thinks that. I'm almost positive he knows nobody's playing week 18. Like, no starter's going to play week 18. There's no point in it. Because they're going to build, they can't get the number 1 seed, so they're going to, like they did last year, they're going to give themselves a bye, which they did last year against the Giants, I think it was, in week 18. So he's going to get his guys out there, and I think it just, like, circumstances will determine what happens next. Is it a close game? Is the offense working fine? Is it like a competitive game? Everybody stay out there. If it's 35-0 Buffalo at halftime, everybody's coming out. I'm not saying it's going to be 35-0, but like I do think circumstances dictate kind of your game plan. And obviously they're going to come out, they're going to start. And who knows, if the weather is worse off than what we think it's going to be, maybe they won't. Because again, you remember, A.J. Brown getting hurt in 23 in a meaningless game. I'm not saying this is meaningless, but he got hurt in a meaningless game, and then, like, we didn't have him in the playoffs and we looked like crap. But, Devontae looked like crap that game. So, you got to be smart, with your guys. They're relatively healthy coming into it, just Lane Johnson. And I kind of agree. If this game meant something, it was going to be, you needed to win it, Lane might be. I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks a couple weeks ago. There was a segment of him in his barn, and, like, he looked fine. Like, he was doing a bunch of workouts. They're probably just, and if there's a guy that doesn't really need the reps, it's him. He doesn't. He can just go out there, roll out of bed, and be an all-pro tackle. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
And I would argue, you mentioned, the team's relatively healthy. Like, we know the likes of Lane Johnson and Dickerson or Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens,
Yeah.
are far from 100%, and you don't want to put them out on a field or in any dangerous condition that could make matters worse. I mean, for Jurgens, it's more his back than anything, I think. But for Dickerson, it's been a plethora of different issues with his, lower extremities. And a game like this where the weather starts to play a factor could be dangerous, and you definitely don't want to worsen some things, because this late in the season, we know most people aren't playing at 100%. There's probably some things, and they may not be on the injury report, but there's things that are probably plaguing almost every player. It'll, like a good 75% of every football team right now at this point in the season. It's a long, grueling season, but yeah, you don't want like any extenuating circumstances to get in the way of, not having key players for their first round of the playoffs.
Exactly. So you want to be smart. You're going to go out there. You're going to play like you're playing in a championship level game, and then circumstances will dictate how you finish it out. Looking at so we talked a lot about the Bills' offense, which we know is really good. Looking at their defense, Gregory Russo's good. Joey Bosa they have. Matt Milano's pretty good. Davius White. I think that the Eagles, their secondary, I don't think is all that good. And I think if the Eagles are able to throw the football, depending on what the weather's like, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith should definitely have the upper hand over their secondary. But Christian Benford has been good for them. He has a couple of touchdowns. I think he was my unheralded player of the week a couple of weeks ago. But he has done a good job, forcing turnovers and getting his hands on the ball and taking it to the house, whether it be a pick six, fumble return for a touchdown. This is not a good Bills rushing defense. So the Eagles, again, they're probably going to want to come out running the ball, but they should be able to utilize the play action and get A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert open in space and make plays down the field.
I mean, I kind of said a little bit earlier, I think one of the reasons that this pass and defense looks as good as they are statistically is just because they don't get tested all that much. You look back at some of the games that they played, and it's like very few teams go for more than 200 yards through the air against them. But that's because you look at it, they gave up 160 yards rushing to the Browns last week, 246 to the Patriots a couple weeks ago, 202 to the Buccaneers, 197 to the Miami Dolphins, 210 to the Atlanta Falcons. These teams don't have to go to the air. So I think that statistics look a certain way and are skewed a certain way, and this secondary looks better than it is because they are throwing on the third lowest amount of times, and they are giving up the second least amount of yards through the air, but that's mostly because teams are focused on running at them and taking advantage of a major weakness within this defense. So I agree with you. I think that they totally could take advantage of a secondary that doesn't really force the secondary, at least doesn't force a whole lot of turnovers. They do rank 8th in turnovers forced, but I mean, you look at it, I think they almost have the same amount, or at least I think it's 13 interceptions and like 7 or 8 forced fumbles. So they have a whole lot of forced fumbles that go along to, helping that statistically for the Buffalo Bills. But, facing A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and some of the big playability that exists with, Jalen Hurts and his arm, that can be dangerous. And you may only need a couple of those big plays to really open things up against this Bills team and to really to put the necessary points on the board and the necessary yardage. This is not a game where I expect to see Jalen Hurts go for 300 passing yards. This is one of these Jalen Hurts games where it's protect the ball, get your, go your, 16 for 22 or 23 and get 150, 160 passing yards. And then you're going to see a major rushing attack on the flip side of it for this Philadelphia Eagles offense.
Yeah, that's probably what is going to happen, especially with the way that the anticipated weather that could be there. It's going to be cold, probably rainy, so it's going to be wet. So you're going to want to protect the ball. Little G, thank you for joining us. Red Eclipse, what's going on, man? Thank you for joining us. He said it's looking like Lane won't play, and for the sake of his health, hope he doesn't. Yeah, we did talk about that. I'm curious to see how the defense performs. We've seen the Birds' defense put good offenses in prison, but it's been a while since we faced a good offense. It has, I think, I mean, do we classify the Bears as a good offense? Because they put up 285 yards on the ground against us. Are the Chargers a good offense? We did a pretty good job against them, but their offensive line is pretty bad. Trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. He goes, I trust Fangio's scheme, but Josh Allen, unfortunately, is just one of those guys that even when you're schematically sound, it doesn't matter because of his Superman runs and throws. Yeah, like that's the game plan. You know, option 1, 2, 3, and 4 is, well, 1, 2 are to stop Josh Allen. 3 is to stop James Cook. And then the tight ends and like Shakir after that. Josh Allen is, again, he's really good. He can make nothing. He can make something out of nothing. You know, one thing we talk about is missed tackles. You cannot miss tackles on him because he will make you pay. He could take 40 yards and he could take it 40 yards into the house. So the Eagles are going to have to do a great job being, you know, some tackling. And this is where, again, you're going to miss Nakobe Dean. Hopefully Jahad Campbell's got, you know, brings his big boy pants and he's ready to go, because usually when he's out on the field, or, you know, when he was out on the field early in the season, they weren't as good as when, Nakobe Dean got back, minus that Chicago Bears game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fundamentally sound tackling, which, you know, we've seen at times. Like it was, a couple weeks ago where the Philadelphia Eagles had no missed tackles, and it's something that hadn't been seen in quite a while for the next gen stats. And you know, but we've also seen them miss a lot of tackles and have games where it's 13, 14, 15 missed tackles in a game. And we know that we have some guys who are not necessarily fundamentally sound when it comes to tackling. You know, I love Reed Blankenship, Jahad Campbell. We've seen situations like if you're going to miss a tackle, at least make sure you have a hold of a limb until help comes and gets you what you need. Because if you let him go, you already know that could turn into big games and big gains. And the Buffalo Bills are one of the top teams on third down and like you said, making something out of nothing, putting themselves in a situation where they can get that first down on third down, whether it be third and short or whether it just be through the Superman-like ability of Josh Allen. They're very effective at that, and it also, I think they're like third or fourth in time of possession, so they love to control the time of possession and the flow of the game, and we know that that's something that the Eagles offense lacks and definitely hasn't been very good at. So it's going to be really important that the defense try and make some big stops and some big plays so that the time of possession can be a bit more balanced, because we know that at times our offense may not be the one you want to rely on in the time of possession battle. So it is amazing though. Josh Allen is so good. Him and Mahomes, like I know that Lamar, like you spoke about Lamar just doesn't have the same ability through the air. I get Lamar can make a lot out of nothing on the ground, but Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, both of them, when watching them run the football or throw the football, can just make magic happen. And that's what makes him so scary. And just like you said, you can be Vic Fangio, who you could obviously argue is the best defensive coordinator in football right now. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, it's hard to speak of like Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs when they're not in the playoffs and everything and the type of season that they've had, but arguably the best defensive coordinator in football. You can't necessarily scheme up stopping Josh Allen.
No, you can't. And it's going to take all 11 on defense. And I think I mentioned them on Tuesday, but like Marcus Epps has made a huge difference in that secondary in the safety position. Because Sidney Brown obviously in play. Andrew Mukuba got hurt. And it's going to be an intriguing, like Mukuba, I think, is available to come off IR soon. And if Mukuba's healthy, do you go back to him starting or do you let Epps play? Like Mukuba, obviously his ceiling's probably higher, but Epps, his understanding just of where he needs to be is definitely a lot higher right now than Mukuba. You know, and yeah, I think, again, I'm always of the best. You put the best 11 out on the field, and it might be Epps right now over Mukuba. And like with the way you have two Pro Bowlers in the secondary and Quinion and Coop, Dory Jackson, again, he's played decent. And again, he hasn't really had to face much. He got beat by McLaurin last week, but other than that, he was pretty good. And he's been pretty good the second half of the season. So like this is another game where he can continue to build his confidence because, again, it's Shakir. You're going to put Coop probably on one of the tight ends. Q might not have to travel with any of the receivers for Buffalo this week. And if you're looking at it, and again, we mentioned Shakir, Josh Palmer, like Tyler Shavers.
Yeah.
He can kind of just play on one side, and you can put Adoree on the other side and not have to worry about the whole matchups unless it's, of course, Coop against one of the tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, unless Adoree Jackson gives you a specific reason or player that's giving you a hard time and you need to get Q going, following someone, there's no real need to. Like you said, I mean, their leading receiver doesn't even have 700 yards on the season, whereas we've played teams where their leading receiver, where they have multiple receivers even, who are up over 1,000 yards on the season. So it's definitely one where unless Adoree Jackson or a specific player gives you a reason to play over them, there's no reason for Q to really follow along. And to your point on Marcus Epps, I agree. And the thing with Andrew Mukuba, he's still a rookie. There was still a lot of talk. He was coached pretty hard at the beginning of the season by Vic Fangio because there was a lot of issues in Makuba's play, whether it be tackling or, how he was playing in coverage and certain things that got called out. There's a chance you bring Andrew Mukuba back. He's been gone for so long. Maybe some good, some bad habits die hard with him and return at a bad time and inopportune time in the playoffs. Whereas you have Marcus Epps, who he's the proven veteran. He's really stabilized the position where when Sidney Brown was out there, he made the position look like an absolute dire need. So you definitely go with what you think is going to be best for your team. And at this point, I mean, activating Mukuba may not be a bad idea, but starting Mukuba may not necessarily be the option that you would go with or that makes sense until Marcus Epps gives you a reason. Because so far, Marcus Epps has not given you a reason, not to the same degree that Sidney Brown gave you more than enough reasons when he was out there.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously decisions will need to be made over the next couple of weeks as we head into the playoffs. A couple more comments over here. Redcliffe says, I do believe the Eagles' pass or run offense can get going against the Bills' defense, but I like to see them run the ball into the dirt to get some confidence in the line going into January. This is where I would like Lane Johnson to be back so we can see the 6-man line with put Fred Johnson out there, or if there was any inclination of maybe moving to Fred Johnson to right guard, which I don't think there is, but yeah, you never know. But, obviously Lane's not going to play this week. 1157 Strange Kid, thanks for joining us. First time chatter here. I think the key for me is keeping the D as fresh as possible. The 3-and-outs and punts are killing us. Yeah, again, the Eagles, I think, still have the highest percentage of 3-and-outs in the league. So, you don't want to give the Bills extra possessions. Try to sustain drives, get first downs, and God forbid, good Lord, stop the tush push for a little bit. Like, try something different on 4th and 1 if you're going to go for it. Like, Jalen Hurts can do a regular QB sneak. Line up, like, maybe spread it out, or, you don't have to have everybody jump it up, have all 22 guys in the line of scrimmage and kind of do something different. Or run it with a tight end like a lot of other teams do, like the Steelers do and even the Bills do. Brett Eclipse also says, I think another underrated storyline in the game is the fact that you could argue this is the best offensive line our defensive line has played in a while. And that's true since the Bears game. And we saw what the Bears did against the Eagles, rushing for 285 yards. So yeah, like it's not going to be an easy game for the Eagles. And I think they're a 1.5 point underdog. So it's pretty much kind of like a pick'em game. So it's still going to be a really good game. And the NFL obviously thinks that too. And they're hoping that the Eagles, do play everybody so that, they get their big, America's Game of the Week on Fox this week. Get everybody's eyes on it, which they will, because who's going to want to watch the Giants and Raiders?
Well, I mean, yeah, unless you're a fan of them, nobody really wants to see their number one, who's going to get the number one pick in the NFL draft at this time of the season. And they're each
outdoing each other. Like Andrew Thomas is out for the Giants, Max Crosby and Brock Bowers are out for the Raiders. It's like when one team says one guy's out or they put him on IR, the other team does it. So they're trying to out-tank each other.
And it's super weird situation with Max Crosby. I saw that reporting today, like he walked out on the bill. First of all, I mean, Max Crosby should have went elsewhere. Yeah, I mean, this is a loser at this point. In the last, 2 decades, is a loser franchise mentality. Of course, they're going to want to sit you and preserve you. Heaven forbid, you tear your Achilles this week and then they don't have you for most of next season, if not all of it. So I understand where the Raiders' logic is coming from, but you can't keep a competitor like Max Crosby down. But I mean, I hope he does. I think he signed the contract extension out of like almost like a respect, like I want to be here. I want to see us turn this thing around. But after the way that they treated him this past week and had him leave the building so frustrated with things, that's not the way you want things to go with your best player. Obviously, no doubt your best players. A little off topic there, but yeah, there are lots of good points made. I mean, we've seen this defensive line do really well. We've also seen this defensive line get moved and dominated at the point of attack against really, really good, really strong Russian offenses. And obviously the Buffalo Bills Russian offense isn't just strong because of Josh Allen and James Cook. There's 5 men in front. We know from last year with Saquon Barkley and his historic season that it's very important to have them work functioning all together and doing the job right and very effectively. And obviously the Bills have that going for them where they don't have things going in the passing game. They have it going elsewhere, and it's going to be important that our defensive line continues to stand strong. I think having Jalen Carter back's going to be big. At the same point, hopefully, Jordan Davis continues to play to the same level, if not, continue to play above that level, because over the last 3 weeks, I think I put it over on our X there, one of the top 5 defensive tackles in football without Jalen Carter in the lineup over the last 3 weeks. So hopefully this, with Jalen Carter back in the mix and Moro Jomo and everyone can kind of get back to normal. Brandon Graham comes out there, 10% of the time and wreaks havoc on those 10% of plays. Hopefully, that whole flow of having those 4 guys together again is going to be a good thing and a major plus for that defensive line against a strong offensive line.
Yeah, so definitely going to be a battle of strength. So it should be fun. One final point on the Max Crosby: if the Raiders traded Max Crosby, they would only face $5 million in dead cap. The team receiving Crosby would take on $30 million guaranteed in 2026, and it's probably worth it. And again, I'm not saying it's going to happen.
So worth it.
But how we might make a call, I guess.
And I think that it's important, at this point for the Raiders, like multiple first-round picks to kind of restart some things may be more valuable than Max Crosby. And because at this point, what is Max Crosby doing for you? Yeah, new coach. Like, what is Max Crosby doing for you when you're still 2 or 3 years out? And these building block pieces are probably more important than what Max Crosby at age 32 when you might be competing and you don't get the building block pieces.
They're 5 years away from being 5 years away, but that's the Raiders.
I know, I was being generous with 3 years. 3 years would be you trade Max Crosby, you get multiple first-round picks, and you actually start hitting on free agency and draft picks. But do we trust the Raiders to do that? Well, we'll see.
We'll see what happens with Tom Brady getting more say in the things. All right, so we are going to move to our final segment, which is our players to watch, keys to the game, followed by our unheralded player of the week and week 16 in the NFL. And then we'll get our prediction. Yeah, Max Crosby, he's trying so hard to build a winning culture there. And they're just like, you know what? We want the number 1 pick. I know he did an interview this week and he's like, yeah, I don't give a crap about it. I'm here to be the best defensive end in the world. I'm out there to win games. And they're like, you know what? We're going to put you on IR. We don't need to be winning games. We need the number 1 pick. Even though there's really no surefire number 1. There's no surefire, franchise quarterback in this draft. But, that's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that, like Max Crosby, you're forcing him to sit because, he's one of the reasons that you might actually win games these next 2 weeks, and you don't want to win the games. Like, such an ultimate loser mentality, and he would fit the Eagles culture so amazingly well, and it would be so much needed, but...
Each kid says he would be, but he's kind of corny. He can't complain if we can't afford him, no. I mean, him and Myles Garrett both can't complain because they both first talked all that, like wanting to go somewhere to win, and then they got offered these huge contracts, and we're like, you know what, we'll stay. So it's both on them. Myles Garrett's going to break the sack record probably this week, so good for him. But if there was of the two, I would want Myles Garrett, but that's just me because he just looks like a transformer out there. All right, let's move to let's move to the players to watch and your keys to the game. Connor, you can go first.
My players to watch is going to be, and I'm going with 3 guys. I'm going with the interior of this offensive line because, this is a game where you're going up against one of the, if not the worst Russian defense in all of the NFL. You just faced the Commanders. You just faced the Raiders. And this team is worse defensively against the run than those teams. You have to be able to open up some lanes and have have Saquon Barkley go off. And I could have easily picked Saquon Barkley as the player to watch on the offensive side of the ball. But I think that it's going to come down to that interior of the offensive line that has struggled. And, Steen definitely has not been the Mekhi Becton of last year. Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson definitely not 100%. Even when they're on the field, they're not looking. They're looking like a shell of themselves from what we saw over the past couple of seasons. So I think it's going to be important that they start to figure things out, open some running lanes, and really take advantage of Bills defense, especially up front, that struggles to stop anything from a run perspective. So I'm putting it on the interior of the offensive line for my players to watch on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, from an offensive key to the game, it's just control that time of possession. Take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. Like we were saying earlier in the episode, you can scheme as much as you want against Josh Allen. He is almost unschemable. And he can make you pay in ways that even Vic Fangio is not going to see coming, because it's what he does outside of structure that sometimes is what makes magic, and what often makes magic for this Buffalo Bills offense. So it's going to be important to keep the ball away from Josh Allen, keep the ball away from James Cook. Do not allow them to control that time of possession. Whoever controls time of possession, unless we start pulling guys, is going to win this game. And I stand by that for this one. Defensive side of the ball, we kind of spoke to it a little earlier. Be fundamentally sound. If you're going up against the number one Russian offense in football, you need to be fundamentally sound. You got to make those tackles. Don't make the missed tackles pay. Don't make it so that the missed tackles may cost you dearly and make you pay as the game goes on. I know that James Cook is hard to get down. I know that Josh Allen is hard to get down, but it's going to be so vitally important for them to make those plays and not let it gouge them for the defensive player to watch. I'm going to go with Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis has been really good. He's been really strong. Jalen Carter's back. He moves into, a role where maybe he's not taking on double teams as much, where he may have more openings to make some big plays happen, continue to produce some big stops. I think he has 12 tackles over the last 3 weeks, and every one of them are stops. So it induced a play that was produce 0 yards or a negative, and he needs to continue to do that. And I think that that's going to be all important for forcing Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills away from their run game and more to the air, where I think that the Eagles definitely can make some plays and make some major stops, because their passing weapons definitely are not as good as the Philadelphia Eagles pass and secondary defense.
I like those. On the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go Saquon, kind of going with what you said about the offensive line. We want to sustain drives, keep Josh Allen off the field, so it's going to be the running game, Saquon and Jalen Hurts for that matter. Also, Tank Bigsby. Get Tank Bigsby involved. He deserves more than 5 carries a game.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and Did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The Subaru Share the Love event is on from November 20th to January 2nd. By the end of this event, Subaru and its retailers will have donated over $350 million to charity. When you purchase or lease a new vehicle during the 2025 Subaru Share the Love event, Subaru and its retailers will make a minimum $300 donation to charity. Visit Subaru.com/share to learn more.
As he's gotten more carries, he's still up averaging, I think, about 6 yards, 7 yards of carries. Get him involved, like kind of have a thunder and lightning thing going there. Get him going so that when teams are like, oh, Saquon's off the field, we're good. No, you have to try to tackle Tank now. I mean, we know that he can do it. But yeah, the big key is going to be the sustained drives to keep Josh Allen off the field and protect the football if you're Jalen and the receivers and the running backs, whoever's carrying the ball. Because with the weather that's anticipated up in Buffalo or up in Orchard Park, it'd be easy to fumble the football. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going with Jahad Campbell because Nakobe Dean obviously is kind of like the heart and soul of that defense, I think. And with him out, Campbell's going to be put in the spotlight again. Obviously, his snaps have come way down since Dean's come back, but now he's going to have the opportunity to start, and he's going to have to, stand up in the run because that might be, one of his weaknesses is the running game. And that's what Buffalo's going to come at him with. They're going to run right at him. So make plays. Like we mentioned, and you kind of reiterate it, be sound tacklers, be sound schematically, be sound defensively, and just be smart. Like make tackles. If they throw the ball, keep a 5-yard gain to a 5-yard gain. Don't let a 5-yard gain become a 25-yard gain. And James Cook is shifty. He's gonna make people miss, but like you mentioned, hold on to any tight limb and until Coop gets there or Epps gets there, the defensive line gets there. Don't allow, big play after big play. So I'm going with
Go
ahead.
Yeah, no, go. You finish your
I was
thought,
gonna say,
and then we'll go to comments.
with Saquon and Jahad Campbell.
Yeah, so a couple of comments here. Brett Eclipses, I'd also keep an eye on all the edge rushers. They need to be on the lookout to try to work back upfield if Josh Allen tries to take off through the middle of the pocket. I mean, based on the last few weeks, it might even be Jordan Davis chasing him down if he gets away, because saw Jordan Davis on a couple of occasions over the past couple weeks, chasing down running backs and quarterbacks who got past the line of scrimmage. Jalen Hunt has been quite good at that this year. Definitely Jalen Hunt. Those edge rushers are definitely big people to watch. I mean, we're not in our key players and in our things to watch. We're definitely not discounting the edge rushers. They have an absolutely excruciatingly difficult job to keep Josh Allen in the pocket and to keep him at bay. So I don't envy the edge rushers and what they have to do. 5'7" Strange Kid for real. I don't know why we can't have two guys in the backfield. It's crazy to me. Saquon can't do it all. It's crazy because Tank Bigsby is at 40 rush attempts and he is still averaging 6.6 yards per attempt. Like he's no longer at 10 rush attempts. He's at 40 rush attempts and he's still at such a high yards per attempt clip that you have to respect that. I get it. You have to respect Saquon Barkley too, but you have to respect that, every time Tank Bigsby is on the field, he's producing 5, 10, 15-yard rushes. And that can be so helpful for Saquon Barkley and making the defense, respect your offense in a whole different way. And you look at the Chicago Bears game against Philadelphia Eagles a few weeks ago. We had no answer for a two-headed monster. It's hard to answer a two-headed monster as a defense.
Yeah, exactly. So just get everybody involved, kind of, I know I get it. And early on in the season, it would have been good to do that, kind of like after all the carries that Saquon had last year, and the wear and tear. But like Saquon is starting to look revitalized, and I think with the offensive line getting a little bit healthier, that's also starting to help. All right, let's move to our unheralded player of the week for week 16 in the NFL. Hopefully you don't take my guy, Connor. I'll let you go first.
For me, I'm going over to the Jacksonville Jaguars and Parker Washington. He went six receptions for 145 yards and a touchdown in a huge W for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who moved to 11-4. And not just that, they beat the Denver Broncos, who were 12-3. Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars have looked really, really good the past few weeks. And I know that now all the national media is like, oh, have we been sleeping on them? So I'm not going to rehash that type of conversation around the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars in a wide open AFC are definitely a team to watch and to respect moving forward, especially come the playoffs.
I was going to go with Parker Washington. I'm going to go with the backfield for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jaylen Warren, and even this guy who I'm not a big fan of, Kenny Gainwell. Warren had 14 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 catches. And then Kenny Gainwell had 9 carries for 50 yards and led the Steelers in receiving 5 catches, 78 yards, and that crazy touchdown that he had falling down and catching the ball and then getting up and scoring. I'm going to go with the backfield of Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell for the Steelers in their 29-24 upset win over the Lions, who aren't as good as everybody thought that they were going to be. All right, Connor.
How many teams have we said that about this year? Like, what a wild year in the NFL. But I think that went Kenny Gainwell last week, too. So, like, he's had such a good year. Career year for Kenny Gainwell.
If you think about it, like, right now, so the Eagles in the NFC, maybe in the entire NFL, are the only repeat division winner. Like, the Chiefs aren't going to win the AFC West. It's going to be a new winner there. The Ravens aren't going to win the AFC North. New winner there. The Bills aren't going to win the AFC East. New winner there. The AFC South, Texans maybe still can win it, but Jacksonville has got the lead there. And then coming over to the NFC, obviously the Eagles. Tampa still has a chance. Seattle's leading the Rams. I mean, the Rams have a slim chance, but it could be Seattle, San Fran, or LA. And then the NFC North, it's not going to be Detroit. So, like, right now, the Eagles are the only repeat division winner from last year, like, as of right this second. So, like, things change. And like, the Eagles have made the playoffs 5 straight years and 8 of 9 or something like that. It's hard to make the playoffs and hard to win in the NFL. People just don't respect that or understand that.
Yeah, and I think I saw a tweet earlier today that mentioned, losing the 2 coordinators in Detroit probably plays a lot larger of a role than people actually want to talk about.
The Eagles still made the playoffs after they lost both of them.
Exactly. And then they brought up the comparison to the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's like, it's not easy to constantly be replacing coordinators. And, the Detroit Lions are in some ways an example of this. And, you can say, well, it's not completely, there's all these other things. I get it that there's a lot of other things, but having the Ben Johnson offense and his play calling ability and play calling prowess leave and then losing a defensive coordinator as well, those are massive losses. And we can speak from experience. We've lost offensive coordinators.
We've lost defensive coordinators.
We've lost the 2 together.
They they got fired, but they still won the Super Bowl a year after replacing Ben Johnson and Sean Desai and Matt Patricia. A couple stat-worthy things. Brett Eclipse says Saquon is 155 more scrimmage yards to a $250,000 bonus. That's always nice. A.J. Brown is 65 yards away from 1,000 yards, and Devontae is 69 yards away from 1,000 receiving yards. So
crazy to think
they're not
for those
going
two
to play week 18 against Washington. So if there's going to be a week to get it, it's going to be this one. Maybe that's going to be the plan this week for the receivers anyway. Just target AJ, target Devontae, and let them get their 1,000 yards. And as Strange Kid says, we are in the Eagles' golden age for sure, despite the struggles. They're not really struggles. They're just the expectations are so high on this team. I know it's almost unfair, but all right, Connor, prediction
It's
time.
always for the team that comes out after winning a Super Bowl. The expectations are sky high. Talk to the Kansas City Chiefs of prior seasons and stuff. There's always this significant expectation. And on the Saquon point, if he gets anywhere remotely, I think if he gets to less than 100 yards of that mark, they're still going to pay him out. The Eagles are notorious for paying out those bonuses, even if you get somewhat close to it. So I wouldn't worry so much about the 155, but he'll get to a point and get it.
All right, Connor, prediction time. I'm 9-6. You're 8-7. Eagles at the Bills. Who you got?
This is such a tough game to predict because, like you said, it can completely change come halftime. And what the decision is, do you roll out the starters or do you roll back the starters and go with the backups for the rest of the season, starting from halftime? But I'm going to go as if that's not going to happen and that it's a competitive game through and through, and the Eagles starters are going to play all the way through the game. And I am going to go with Eagles loss, and I have the Bills winning 31-27.
That's funny. So I always write my score down before you. 31-27 Buffalo for me. I always write it down.
Look at us go.
I always write it down before we even start. So we both have the Eagles losing 31-27, but I don't think this game is as important as a lot of the talking heads around the city are saying, like, oh, they need to come out and play. The most important part is coming out healthy. If they can get out of this game healthy, they're not going to play the starters next week against Washington. The 3 seed is pretty much clinched, and then we can go from there. Like, they'll be fine in the playoffs because you'll have everybody healthy on the offense. You'll have Lane Johnson back, and I think the defense is going to be fine. And we'll see one of the NFC West teams. We'll see LA or Seattle or San Francisco at the Link wildcard weekend, and I'm fine with that. I am fine with that. Nobody's going to want to come into Philly wildcard weekend. Not at all.
No, definitely not. It's going to be wild. Adam's Exploits, hello, man. Good guesses. Thanks for joining us as always. I agree. It is what it is. I'm happy with the 3 seed. If we keep pushing for it and, by chance we get the 2 seed, I mean, where you still have to ride the backups week 18, because even if there's a chance at the 2 seed, I would be shocked if we rolled out starters next week. Absolutely shocked.
Exactly. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. We hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and got your families enjoyed your time together and watched a bunch of football, which is what I did. By the way, NFL Christmas over NBA Christmas all the time. Adam does.
Thanks for starting the tradition, NBA, but the NFL just robbed you of that tradition.
And look, they did it last year when it was on a Wednesday. When it's on a Tuesday in a couple of years or whatever, they'll still have games. It's over. The NBA is the worst league anyway. That's a different story for a different day. Before we finish off, Adam's Exploit says, I think they need to hold the Bills to 24 or less. That'll be tough. That's going to be tough, but it's possible because the Eagles defense is still very good. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRoyal54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. Nobody cares about the Sixers. I hate that team with a passion. There's only one team in professional sports I hate more than the Sixers, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. But they're very, very close. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour as the Eagles are set to travel to Orchard Park to face the Bills. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour.